happy Sunday night or Monday night, depending on when you watch this video. I'm going to give you our weekly rundown. This week, we are beginning Realism, Henry James. And this is such a good story, y'all. This lesson's going to take 2 weeks because this story, some people consider it a novel. It's really not a novel. It's more like a really long short story, which I know seems impossible to have a really long short story. But that is technically, it's a novella, if you will. So this week and next week, we will be reading The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. So let's click on it. So your watch list, you have one Henry James biography. It's short. And then you have The Turn of the Screw. So assignment list, you will have a Henry James bio quiz. So watch this video, 32 minutes, then take the quiz. And then you have a reading discussion, and then we are going to write an MLA paper on The Turn of the Screw. So you have your first large paper. So let's talk about this in bits. You have your biography, your quiz, and then you have your textbook here. So you can read it online. You can see sometimes you can say student. My credentials may not work, but click on it. Let's see if it'll just let me. All right. And then your book's right here. So you can start here, The Turn of the Screw. And it begins here. Now, don't be confused because the very beginning of the story is kind of like a setup for the actual story. Basically, it's a group of Victorians who are hanging out and they're telling ghost stories on Christmas Eve, as you do on Christmas Eve. It was a Victorian tradition. We don't do it any longer, but it was very popular at the time. And this one guy stands up and he's like, hey guys, hold my beer. I've got the scariest one yet. And so he introduces it, and then The Turn of the Screw, which is the ghost story that he tells the Victorian Christmas Eve celebrators, that's our actual story. So the beginning may be a bit confusing, but just hang in there and stick with it, and it gets really, really good. Okay? All right, so your textbook's here, and then we have a little discussion here. And this is for questions, problems, or anything that you would like to discuss. If you read something, you're confused about this, you're like, who is this character? What's going on? I don't understand what I've just read. Put it here. Because if you have that question, there's probably somebody else who has that question as well. Also, last week I've noticed in this class, our discussion boards, I was talking to myself, y'all. So make sure that you're getting in there and you are discussing things. Just because that's what I feel like I miss out on online classes. We don't really get to speak to one another. So get in there early and talk to me. Okay? Now, I've also included a movie version. Now, sometimes I think it just helps to have a movie, but I want you guys to know that this movie is not entirely based on the book. Also, the BBC produced this movie, and these guys aren't afraid of some nudity and some obscene things. So be careful. Make sure that if you have little ones that they're not in the room, because I feel like I remember that there's parts of this that make me blush. So y'all, this is your trigger warning. Get the kids out of the room. And also, it's not entirely accurate to the actual plot of the book, but I think it may help you a little. But don't depend on it or you will get things wrong on your MLA paper, okay? This here, I want you to read this after you read The Turn of the Screw. I talk about some things that I find interesting about this particular text. And then right here is your MLA paper assignment. And let's look at that together. So, for your assignment, you are going to choose one of the below topics. I provide you with topics. If you have a topic that you want to write on, just drop me an email and, hey, Miss Jones, I'd really like to write on this. And I'm probably going to let you. But just give me a heads up if you deviate from the topics that are offered, okay? So this essay is going to be in MLA format. You will notice here that I give you a link to Purdue OWL. That's the format. Those guys are like the guidebook to MLA, also APA. But we're only worried about MLA. So just sort of use that as your guideline. Use that as your reference. This paper must have 2 scholarly sources. So you will have the turn of the screw, and then your 2 scholarly sources for a total of 3 sources. Your format should be 12-point font in either Arial or Times New Roman. You, of course, will have a title. Make sure you have a clear thesis. And again, I cannot say this enough. Make sure your sources are scholarly. You guys should know at this point, you're in 1102, what a scholarly source is. That means no Wikipedia, no blogs. Do not do a straight Google search. You guys need to be on Galileo, using Galileo or Google Scholar for your resources, okay? This paper is going to be between 1,000 to 1,500 words. So if you do not hit that word count requirement, I start taking points off. So make sure you hit that. So these are your possible topics. How are religion and churches important in the turn of the screw? Or you can write about what is the significance of the governess's impoverished upbringing in the turn of the screw. You can discuss how and why is the word free used in the turn of the screw to describe Peter Quint and his influence on Miles. You can talk about how does the uncle's absence at Bly impact the turn of the screw characters. You can cover how does the governess's attitude towards the ghosts affect her character in the turn of the screw. How did the governess's sightings of Miss Jessel and or Peter Quint change as the turn of the screw progresses? How does the turn of the screw explore the idea of repression through the governess and children? And last but not least, how does the turn of the screw explore the ideas of the unconscious mind through the governess? So these are several topics. I didn't realize there were so many until I started reading them. But there are several choices that you can choose from. And these choices have a lot of sources accompanied with them. So these are papers that I've read before. So after you read the text, make sure that you are giving yourself plenty of time to write this paper. The final due date for this paper will be September 13th by 11:59 p.m. Okay? So that is what we are going to be working on for the next 2 weeks. So if you guys have any questions, problems, concerns, you can always email me, but also remember to post on this discussion board because I want to talk about this book. I love this book. It's amazing, and I hope you guys love it too. Okay? All right, so y'all have an amazing week, and email me if you need me. All right, we'll see ya.